You're listening to a podcast by Way Collective, a contemplative community for love and liberation in Santa Barbara, California. This recording was the conversation starter at our dinner and dialogue gathering on May 20th, 2026. Thanks for tuning in. Have you ever noticed how quickly a moment disappears? Have you ever really sat with that? Like that sentence I just spoke right there, it's already gone. And now this one I just said is gone too. And somehow here we still are, breathing, listening, existing in this strange yet fleeting thing we call the present moment. And what's wild is that every single thing we've ever experienced, every heartbreak, every joy, every memory, every fear about the future has only ever happened here in the present. Even the past only existed as a present once, and the future, whenever it arrives, will not arrive as the future. It will arrive as this, as yet another present moment. And yet so much of our lives are spent somewhere else, replaying what already happened, anticipating what might happen, narrating and predicting and managing. Meanwhile, the actual mystery of life is unfolding right in front of us. And I think this is where all of our conversations these past few weeks have been leading. Because whether we're talking about the mystery of the cosmos or the mystery of ourselves or the mystery of one another, all of it ultimately comes down to this. Can we learn to encounter the mystery of what's happening right now? Because the present moment isn't just a slice of time that we pass through, it's the living location where reality is always arriving. And if we can begin to really pay attention to it, I think something begins to open in us. And so I want to begin tonight by saying that I wonder if mystery has at least two qualities to it. So the first is the mystery of the what. As in, what is all of this? Like, the phenomenon of our lives is always something we experience from the inside, but it also remains deeply unknown to us. There are things moving through us that began long before we arrived here. We have inherited patterns, ancestral wounds, instincts, desires, and fears. There are movements within us that transcend easy categorization. And ultimately, we really do not know what we are in any final cosmic sense. There's a line from the song In the Airplane Over the Sea by a band called Neutral Milk Hotel that captures this beautifully. It says, "What a beautiful face I have found in this place that is circling all around the sun. And when we meet on a cloud, I'll be laughing out loud. I'll be laughing with everyone I see because I can't believe how strange it is to be anything at all." And honestly, isn't it strange to be here? To be conscious, to be alive, to feel sadness and joy and longing and beauty, to exist at all, It's strange. And yet there's beauty in it, and that's the secret. But then there's this second dimension to mystery. It's not just the mystery of the what, but it's the mystery of the process. The reality that we are always becoming, always unfolding, and always moving beyond our current form. Like we talked about last week, there's something in us that is continually flowing forward into novelty. Something in us that is always more than what we currently understand ourselves to be. And honestly, I think some of us understand this more viscerally than others. And when I think about this, I think of many of my trans friends. People who know deeply that they contain multitudes far beyond the categories that they were handed. And when they come out, there's often this profound blossoming that happens, this movement where the outer life begins to align more honestly with the inner flow of becoming. And something hidden emerges, something new comes alive. And whether or not you fully understand that experience, I think all of us know something about that movement. That feeling of becoming more fully ourselves in our wildness. So mystery has these two dimensions or admissions, perhaps. I don't really know what I am, and I am always changing. And maybe they're actually one and the same, but more on that in a little bit. In the Christian mystical tradition, this acknowledgement of unknowing is often called the apophatic path. This path where words eventually fail us, where we stop trying to define reality with precision and instead begin to presence it, to attend to it, to participate in it. Because in some sense, embracing mystery means refusing to reduce this moment into categories that are too small to contain it. Does that make sense? I think we instinctively know this in moments of great gravity, right? The death of someone we love, or the birth of a child, or a great love that changes the course of our lives, or a societal event that alters history. When these things happen, there really is no category big enough to hold them, because some things exceed language. And so what if, instead of only recognizing mystery in extraordinary moments, we learn to approach every moment this way? I have this example of like being in a field and pretend that there's this rock over there, a dull gray rock sitting in a field. It's some tightly bonded arrangement of crystalline minerals, which are themselves made of repeating 3D frameworks of atoms, right? This rock has gone unnoticed for years until suddenly you sit beside it and realize this too is an expression of the mystery. Or perhaps there's a flower over there in that field, which is a brief eruption of color, blooming only for a season before slowly falling and composting itself back into the earth. And yet, for a moment, it shined with something everlasting in the world. This too is an expression of the mystery. Or maybe like Mary Oliver wrote in her poem, The Summer Day, there's a grasshopper in this field. This grasshopper, she says, I mean the one who has flung herself out of the grass, who's moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who's gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes, and eventually snaps her wings open and floats away. This too is an expression of the mystery, right? And when we can recognize it for what it is, suddenly the ordinary becomes luminous, doesn't it? And we could keep going, right? Rocks, flowers, grasshoppers, forests, oceans, ecosystems, continents, planets, solar systems, galaxies, and. All of it is a great mystery. And somehow this mystery is beautiful. That is to say, we have this inner sense that it has value or inherent worth. And I know we all know this, but honestly, I think awe and wonder are the only appropriate postures before this kind of reality. And the present moment is always where we are witnessing this, if we can only learn to have eyes to see. The difficulty is that this kind of seeing takes patience, right? Patience not to reduce the moment too quickly. Patience not to flatten our experience into categories and conclusions. Patience enough to let the moment remain alive. There's an author by the name of Christine Rosen who writes in her recent book, I think from 2024, The Extinction of Experience. She writes, perhaps there's only one cardinal sin, impatience. She says, because of impatience, we were driven out of paradise. And that line's always stuck with me because I think she's right in some sense. Like she talks about how our technologies increasingly train us toward things like efficiency and predictability, repeatability, and control over our emotions. And yet those are not actually the qualities we value most deeply in life, are they? Not in love, not in friendship, not in beauty, not in grief. Her observation is that our technologies increasingly encourage us to relate to ourselves more like machines, always optimized, measured, and controlled. But something in us resists that, I think. Something in us longs to return to our wildness, to feeling, to presence. And I think that's why there's so much language in our culture right now around being present. As I was writing this, I turned to look at my bookshelf and saw 3 book titles: Be Here Now, Present Over Perfect, and How to Be Here, right? Something is trying to be reborn out of our attention economy, because we all know that attention is sacred and that what we attend to shapes our experience of reality. So the poet T.S. Eliot once said, "We had the experience, but we missed the meaning." And I think that's one of the great tragedies of modern life, that we're surrounded by experience but are often absent to it. And by meaning, I don't mean, another explanation or label. I mean the surplus of meaning, the depth, the aliveness, the mystery of what is right in front of us. And personally, you don't have to go all the way here with me if you don't want to, right? And I'm not gonna unpack it here, but I think metaphysically speaking, part of why the present moment feels so luminous is because something eternal is always shining through it. Something in every subatomic particle is the infinite becoming finite. Something in every fleeting moment carries eternity with it. And I think we all intuitively feel this quality, that there's something innately precious about the world, and that's really what I mean. But what is that, I think this fact is why great art moves us, why poetry undoes us, why music suddenly cracks us open. Because artists are the ones who brush up against the mystery, and for just a moment they attempt to name or capture what is unnameable and uncapturable. And they help us to see it too, and we say, oh my God, would you look at that? There's something eternal baked into the present moment, and our great invitation is to become intimate with that mystery. Not by escaping our lives, but by entering them more fully, because this moment, however ordinary it may seem, is where reality is always happening. This breath, this sound, this person in front of me, this ache, this beauty right here. And maybe that is where this whole series has been leading us, toward turning to mystery and awe and wonder again as a balm for whatever we're enduring in the present moment. Turning toward a deeper quality of attention, a way of seeing, a willingness to stop rushing past our lives long enough to actually encounter them. Because the truth is, we're surrounded by mysteries so constantly that we've almost forgotten how strange and beautiful any of this is. Think about a face, or the song of a bird, or a memory, or a blade of grass pushing through the concrete. A human being capable of love and grief and poetry. How strange it is to be anything at all. There's always something in this moment that exceeds this moment, something infinite inside the finite. And perhaps the invitation of the present moment is simply to learn to stand inside it long enough to become astonished again. All right, well, I've got 3 contemplative questions for conversation. I'm looking forward to talking about this with you all. So the first question is the self question. What is something ordinary in your everyday life that's recently struck you as beautiful or mysterious? The second question is the sacred question. What moments in your life have felt too big or beautiful or meaningful for words? And lastly, the society question. What do you think our culture loses when efficiency and distraction become more important than presence? And are you seeing anywhere in our world where people are finding their way back to each other? Thanks for listening to this podcast by Way Collective. To keep up with our community, you can subscribe to this podcast, visit www.waycollective.org, or follow us on Instagram at @waycollective. Peace and every good, y'all.